Charlotte. All right, so some of y'all know I'm obsessed with drones and flying them and filming with them. But recently I discovered that my power source for charging the drone with my handy dandy charger failed. It wasn't working anymore, so I decided to make a video on making a new power source for it. My name is Mark Passion, and this is some that I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an old ATX power supply from a computer. This is from like a desktop computer. I just took the power supply out. I'm going to go along a bunch of tips and tricks and things to avoid hurting yourself, because these are pretty darn dangerous. The first thing I'm going to say is to unplug it and leave it unplugged for like a day at least, because there's large capacitors in there that could shock you if you're not careful. So. Yeah, we'll go step by step, and I'll show you guys how to make a power source. This is on, there are 3 different voltages that come out of this, 12 volts, 5 volts, and 3.3 volts. And I'm only going to use the 12 volt side, so we're not going to worry about the other voltages. But this thing is really handy because you can power all sorts of stuff, the same voltage that you would power things from a car. Really handy, so I'm going to do a couple cool things with it too. Alright, so I just plugged in my hot glue gun. I'm going to show you why I'm using a hot glue gun. So let's see. All my stuff is down below. I'm not at my desk or anything. So let's see. I have a switch. The switch is for, well, on these things there's a green wire, and it's called the PS on wire. I think it's power supply on. It's a green wire, and that wire has to go to ground in order for the power supply to actually come on and work. So that's what this switch is for, is it's so that way I can turn this thing on and off, essentially. You could just wire them together, and anytime you plug it on, it would plug it in, it would turn on, and unplug and so on. But I'd rather just have a little switch. It's nice. But there's nowhere to mount the switch, and so I'm honestly just going to glue it. And yeah, the back end is exposed, and you got to be really careful with things like that. But like I said, this is all going to ground, and so I'm not really worried about it like grounding by accident. For the back of the switch, I have these little connectors so you can connect it to the back of the switch. It makes things a lot easier. So first off, I'm just going to get some wire snippers. For now, what we're going to do is going to find the green wire, and I'm pretty sure, let me check real quick. Yeah, the green wire is the only green wire there, so just what I'm going to do is snip the green wire so I have it ready. Snip. I'm going to strip it. Just a little bit. And then with one of the little connectors, I'm going to, so I crimp that to the little connector, so that way this can plug into the back of the switch. You'll see. I think this project is pretty sweet because you can use it with all sorts of stuff. So the next thing I'm going to do is take one of the ground wires, one of the black wires, and it could be any black wire. They're all connected to the same. So just pick one. I'm going to do the same thing, snip it, strip it, take my connector, and have it crimped. Alright, so now with this switch right here, it's got a third prong, and that's for, I believe, a positive, or I think that you usually put positive on the actual switch side, and then you ground it to something, so that way this little light, LED light on the front comes on. I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to use the switch itself. So alright, so I got it hooked up, little switch. Now I'm just going to glue it down with a hot glue gun. There's probably better ways to do that, but I'm not really caring too much. Not going to worry myself too much about it. Alright, so I glued it down, and I'm just going to wait for it to kind of cool down, because hot glue. Alright, so there's one more thing that I want to do with the hot glue gun, and I'll show you guys real quick. But we'll get back to what I'm going to do with this this part of it. I'm just going to take this guy right here. It's a 12 volt outlet. that you would see in like cars, and it's like the cigarette lighter and stuff like that. And I'm going to glue that down to the top. And we're going to use that later. Like I said, there's probably better ways to mount this stuff, but I'm just not going to worry about it too much because it's really, I'm just being lazy, so. Alright, again, I'm just going to wait for this to kind of cool down and dry. Seems pretty sturdy, or sturdy enough. It might bust off someday and I'll fix it, but I'm kind of in a hurry and not really worrying too much about it. So another thing that I'm going to do real quick is I'm not using any of these wires, and instead of snipping them and leaving them like exposed kinda, I'm just going to like wrap them up real good and then zip tie them down so that way they're out of my way. I don't have any zip ties. Hey, that glue's holding pretty good. Alright, so those are kind of out of my way. I'm not really going to worry about them. Like I said, I'm in a hurry, not really trying too hard with this project, but there's a dog hair. Yeah, Charlotte. So, there we go. Okay, so this is the part that we came here for. Yellow and black wires right here, and the yellow is all 12 volts, and the red is all 5 volts, and the orange is all 3.3 volts. And I'm only going to use the 12, like I said. So what I'm going to do, see these two right here. I have the yellow and black, so these are both 12. And I'm going to go ahead and snip them, so that way I have them exposed for me to use. Alright, so the first one I'm going to use is, like I was saying, to charge the drones, to actually power my, my charger, so that way I can actually use it. But instead of just sticking with wiring this directly to the charger or to plug it in, I'm actually going to leave an option for me to unplug it and then use this 12 volts for other things if I feel like it. But that's, you don't have to do that, but that's what I'm going to do. Okay, now that everything's stripped, I don't know if you guys can really see down here, but I have a soldering iron. And I'm going to go ahead and tin these wires, meaning I just put a little bit of solder on the tips of each wire so that way they're easier to connect when you go to solder. So, I'm in the process of moving, so everything's like a complete mess. You guys have no idea. Don't inhale that. That's this is leaded solder, so it'll probably give you a nasty headache. Should have turned a fan on. Don't have a fan. So I already have this one lying around. It's going to be to where this is coming out of this box that I'm turning into my power source, and it's an XT30 connector, and this is an XT30 female piece, and this can connect to it, right? And then this barrel connector will plug into the back right here. And you got to know what is ground and what's positive, otherwise you'll ruin your electronics. But I already know because there's a little thing right here that tells you what's what, and so I know that the inside of it right here is going to be positive, and then this little outer part that you see is going to be the negative, and so that's how that's wired. So I'm going to put the male piece on my power supply. So I strip these, and like I said, I don't know if you can see it down here. You probably can't, but I'm going to go ahead and tin the top of it with a little bit of solder, tin the end of that wire with a little bit of solder. All right, so the red wire, which is going to be your positive, and the black wire is going to be your negative. But on the power supply, it's a yellow and black. So black on black, yellow on red this time. Now, this is cool. I really like this stuff. It's called heat shrink, and it's to cover the exposed portions of the wire. So I'm going to go ahead and use some heat shrink. All right, so you slip the heat shrink over the wire, past where you're going to solder, then just leave it there. So that way, when you're done soldering, you don't have to be like, oh, great, I didn't. You get the point. All right, so I got the black connected, and I'm connecting the yellow to the red. Guess what? Just like I said to slip the heat shrink over the wire, I just soldered it together and I didn't slip it over the wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to desolder it. All right. Slip it over the wire. Nobody's perfect, especially me. All right, now I'm soldering it. So now I'm slipping the heat shrink over the portion of it. I'll actually show you guys this part. Not that it's rocket science. Apparently it's something. There we go. Not that it's rocket science, but this is what I'm doing. This is the soldered part, and I'm slipping it over the heat shrink, or slipping the heat shrink over the soldered part, and what you do is take a lighter to it and heat it up real good, and it'll shrink. You don't want to just sit with a lighter straight on it, it'll catch fire. It's not good, rubber. Here's my connector coming from my power source. That will plug there. This will plug here. So now it's plugged into your power source. Now, technically speaking, you could plug this in and turn it on and this will come on. But there's a few steps that I still want to do to power this guy for other things, and you'll see. And also, there's one more step just in case, because some of these power sources, they need, how do I describe this? They need some sort of load on the 5-volt side. It's a way for the power source in computers to detect that there's something connected to it, and so it'll actually come on and work. Now, some of these things don't work if they don't have a load, and so if there's no load in the 5-volt side, it just won't come on. Nothing will work. And I'll show you guys how to put a load on it if that's what needs to happen in your case. I don't think that's going to happen in this case, but just in case, I have a way to put a load on this thing. We'll show you guys. All right, my next step. This is a 12-volt outlet, and I'm sure you guys know what that is in a car, you know. And I'm gonna use this so I can power USB things. So we're gonna strip and tin the back of these, and then we're gonna cut this to length, so that way it's not all over the place and long and lanky. And then we're gonna tin it and then solder them and then put the heat shrink on it. So whenever you cut your wires to length, always cut them a little bit longer than they need to be, because you can always keep cutting it down, but as soon as you cut it too short, you can't make it longer, so logic. Let me get a little bit of heat shrink again. Alright, so I'm going to tin the wires. Alright, slipping the heat shrink over the wires before I forget. A little too much solder on that. Oh well. Probably it's not going to be good though. It's harder to get the heat shrink over if you got too much solder. Heat shrink is over. I just want to show you guys real quick. Got heat shrink over these. I put some solder on the tips of these and the tips of these. Now I'm going to solder these together, put the heat shrink over it, and then run a lighter under it. Alright, so I'm connecting the yellow 12 volt to the red wire on the outlet. Now I'm going to heat these up. Heat shrink is the coolest. I wish I had a heat gun like for solder and stuff, because then I could really get some work done, but this'll do. Alright, so now that that's connected via 12 volts, like I said, this guy right here, I'm going to completely leave that alone, completely leave these alone. All I'm using is this right here, which I can disconnect and use for other things, but it's the barrel connector, so that way I can use my charger. And then this right here with that. So that's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about this. Real small, real simple. It'll put out 17 amps, so that's a lot of power. Don't mess up and shock yourself with this stuff. If you aren't confident in doing this, don't do it, because if you shock yourself, 17 amps is way more than enough to kill you. I mean, seriously, that's a lot of power. So, okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to plug this in and try to turn it on, because I think that it'll work. If it doesn't work, then I'm going to, I'm just going to go ahead and do what I think I need to do in order to get it to discharge its capacitor, so that way it's safe for me to actually work on this. But I don't suggest you do that. If you plug it in and it doesn't work, unplug it, set it aside for an entire day, and then come back to it, and then we'll finish the last part of it if it doesn't work. But if it does work, then you're done, you're finished. That's a new power source, and you don't have to wire this up what I did. You can wire other things to it and do it however you want, but just be safe. You know, this stuff is real dangerous. So, but yeah, I'm gonna plug it in and try it out. Let's see what happens. So, I'm gonna go ahead and plug this guy, my charger, in. So now it's connected to the power source. Power supply, power source. And now I'm going to plug this in. This has got power. And then I'm gonna flip the switch, and then hopefully my thing down there will go beep and come on. If it doesn't, then I'll have to go ahead and put a resistor, a very large resistor on the 5-volt side, tricking this thing, making it think it has a load, and that way it can use the power. Yeah. So here goes nothing. Nothing blew up yet. That's good. My little switch. I'm super satisfied with that. Now, as you can see, this little blue LED came on. I can charge things like phones and whatever crap with this thing too. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm really satisfied with this. But I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to do that resistor anyway, just in case this doesn't work like it did in my case. But I'll go ahead and show you guys. This is a 50-watt resistor. I think is it 50 ohms? I thought it was, no, it's 8 ohms, my bad, 8 ohms of resistance. What you do is you connect one side of it to the positive side of 5 volts, which, remember what I said earlier, it was the red wire. All the red wires are 5 volts, all the black wires are ground, all the yellow wires are 12 volts, all the orange wires are 3.3, which we don't need. But if yours doesn't come on, then either it's this or it's another wiring problem, and you need to be really careful, because if you don't know what you're doing, yeah, anyway. One side of this will go to 5 volts, the red wire, and the other side will go to a ground. And you just connect them, set it aside. So what happens is when you turn on that switch, it'll feel the load of this resistor, and it'll go, oh hey, I have a load, I'm plugged into a computer, and then I'm gonna come on, and so it'll, like, all the other things that you wired up will work. In this case, I didn't have to do that, obviously, because it's just, yeah, some of them do that, some of them don't, so. Thanks for watching. Give it a like, subscribe, share the video, hit the notification bell so that way you can see all these other crazy, weird projects I do. Thanks for watching, guys. Pretty stoked.